HBCU athletics to facilitate the story of the HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, with co-host Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, who are out on assignment. So we have BJ Jones, we have AD Drew, and Vaughn Wilson is going to give you some updates and insight as we do it like we only can. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal directly to you in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas, or at least I am. And these individuals are all over the world, literally. So today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THD Agency. It is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. With that said, let me say, BJ Jones, where are you coming from? Where are you at right now? Tell the world.
I am in Birmingham, Alabama.
Ooh,
so
man.
Yeah.
Home, Alabama and Birmingham. Get it done. What is that? The 205 area code?
205, man. The 205.
Oh, man. Big time. Big time. Hey, Drew, where are you coming from?
I'm about 2 hours from Vaughn. I'm in Tifton, Georgia. That's 229 for those of you all who like to do the area code thing, even though my telephone number starts with 334 because I spent 17 years in the 334 and I was born in the 314, that being St. Louis, Missouri.
Now, y'all figure all that out. And I'm glad he gave us the cheat code. Vaughn, where are you coming out of?
First off, I'm jealous that he's in Tifton because Tifton has the best pecans in the whole world. So anyway, I'm coming from the 850 in Tallahassee.
You know, Vaughn is, he said pecan, not pecan, pecan. So you know it's true. You know it's true.
Okay. Some people say pecans, so.
Oh,
I say that sometime too.
Oh, this is getting it.
Only when it comes to my pie, pecan.
That's right. I was about to say, when it comes to pie, it's not a pecan, it's a pecan pie.
Now, you can only get that on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Well, as we jump back into it, let's go ahead back to you, Vaughn. You were talking about your framing that you were watching the game in terms of those assistant coaches. Go ahead and give them some shine now, and then get into maybe some of the dialogue that is out there in regards to who should be coaching HBCU programs and why.
And absolutely, and I'm not to distract at all from an absolutely great game experience. It looked good. ESPN put the effort in. The analysts they had on at halftime were phenomenal. They dug deep into the game. So overall, the broadcast left me with a great feeling about HBCUs. A narrative that's been going a lot lately, especially since the addition of Coach Prime at Jackson State. But I have to say that Coach Prime was a great offensive coordinator at Trinity in high school. The team was nationally ranked, and he had success there. So he had experience coaching. Now we have Eddie George at the helm of Tennessee State, and there's word that Ed Reed and Ray Lewis are looking to get into HBCU coaching. I want to highlight two guys, and they are going to be the personification of why I have a problem with those big name NFL players coming in. First off, the defensive coordinator for Pine Bluff, Jonathan Bradley, did an amazing job. He did what nobody had the guts to do, which was to blitz A&M and cover those great receivers man to man. And so that first half, that is why Pine Bluff dictated the pace of the game and why they were successful in the first half. But on the other side of the ball, Alabama A&M's offensive line coach, Marcus Lawrence, at halftime figured it out, got that message to his kids, and you can see them giving Glass the time he needed to do what he does best, pick the secondary apart. And it was a work of art, and it's what they've done all year. So I got to give those great coaches, Lawrence and Bradley, some shine here. And my problem with, I love Ray Lewis as a player, love Ed Reed as a player. My problem is these guys are paying their dues in the HBCU ranks and deserve a chance one day. They've shown excellence in their work. They deserve a chance one day to be the head coach of an HBCU. But if we flood it with these players under the Jackson State model, which I'm not critical of the Jackson State model, I think it's going to work for them. My problem is, where do these coaches go?
Great point. Great point. When you say that, before we get into some analysis as you did in terms of the second half, because I want to give a shout out to Mario Thomas that talked about in the second half that Alabama A&M was going to need to run the ball, which probably surprised some people that weren't thinking about it. And they certainly did that. And it seemed to be successful, giving you some kudos when you were talking about some of the changes made directly on the offensive line to give them more time and throw them off. And you talked about the first half's adjustments in terms of what Pine Bluff did to go in there. Let me go to B.J. Jones, one of the guys along with Vaughn, as well as A.D. Drew that played the game. A.D. Drew coached the game. So you get some unique framework in this episode that we have today. We're talking about folks that have turned and become analysts, but in some way are connected to the game than most of us are not, including myself, that just watch from afar. If it wasn't soccer or baseball, you didn't catch me with a helmet on. Y'all just did something different than I didn't think of. Now, this is the thing where you're going to get a crack of a laugh about that. Everybody else in my family did play football. I'm talking about even going back to the 20s. You know, we do the Big Ben Calvo Senior HBCU Football Award that is connected to a player in the state of Texas that played for HBCU, whether they did high school in the state of Texas and went to a HBCU, or they from outside of the state of Texas and then went to a HBCU in the state of Texas. So back in 1925, he played for Wiley College, first decade of the SWAC. Since we're celebrating 100 years, I think it's appropriate to kind of look at it as we got this game in, literally, on the 100th anniversary. And we go to 2021 when we talk about 101 and the expansion of the conference. He played fullback, is the term they used at that time, played in the inaugural game of the State Fair Classic, the Negro Day at the Classic, as they call it all those days. He was an All-American, two-time All-American, first team one time, second team. Actually was the reason that they at least in the SWAC, moved to 4 years for a player to play, because he played in 5, which you remember hearing a lot out during those times. Brought in 4 of the 5 champions for Wiley College. I'm the legendary coach coaching over there during those programs, and won a Black College National Championship as a co-champion with Bluefield State, oddly enough, as we speak about them on the baseball side, getting it done. With that, B.J. Jones, what are your thoughts in the construction in terms of bringing in coaches, one that may have the pro Hall of Fame caliber component, but not necessarily on the field coaching experience?
It's all about what's your end game. I think that Jackson State and Tennessee State were in 2 unique situations. Both of them, it had been some time since they had been successful on the field. And I've talked to a lot of Jackson State people about this hire. They simply said it's not about the wins and losses. It's about, hey, what can be improved through the coach. What connections does he have to get things improved from a facility standpoint, from just an overall betterment of the athlete standpoint, to get some revenue there. And they have no doubt in their mind that Deion Sanders will leave that program better off than what he found it, especially from a financial standpoint. But for me, I like the guys who work their way up. One of the things that I've learned in coaching now and playing the game, just because you know how to play it doesn't mean it translates to teaching it. Being a coach is being a teacher. And so many guys who play at a high level that are very, very good at what they do, they have a hard time translating that over to be able to teach that. And then, what is your end game? A lot of people are looking at it from the financial standpoint. Hey, I get this coach in, and there's the exposure, there's this, there's that. But what is your end game? Because at the end, wins or losses are what we judge coaches on, no matter what anyone says. The state of your program is going to be about your wins and losses. So it's interesting. I like going the HBCU route, getting the guys that work their way up, but that's just me.
I really appreciate the framing you put on that you also have to be careful about putting this in the framework of all HBCUs, but understanding that it's individual institutional needs as well. Great point. in terms of what we're looking at. That and Vaughn put this on the table, so I appreciate that. So let me go to AD Drew. They coach HBCU football. Basketball, excuse me. So what is your thought in terms of your perspective on it?
I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what BJ just said. Not all great athletes are able to become good or great coaches because their athletics, their success came to them a lot of times so easily, where the average athlete had to work hard and train in a different way to get to a comparable level. The same thing in the classroom. And Doc can relate to this. You get that student who just, you put calculus in front of them or physics in front of them or a higher level skill, and they read it, they get it. Whereas you get an average student who has to struggle to understand those concepts, has to do all the practice problems in the back of the book. The teacher assigned the odds. You go through and do the odds, but you go back and you turn the odds in, but you go back and do the evens because you need the extra practice. And you may ultimately get to that same level where that one student got everything the first time in a study group to understand that. So, but sometimes you need that professor who can break that down for you in a different way. So same thing with these coaches. And we talking about coaches. And Vaughn brought up the two assistant coaches, the defensive coordinator and then the offensive line coach. I want to talk about two coaches who, when you look at the coaching roster for both these teams, they don't even have a person listed at that position, but we know somebody is doing it. That's the special teams coach, because special teams in this game played such a key portion. Let's see. We had the penalty. We had the Pick'em penalty on the punt block attempt. I mean Pick'em because you could have picked anybody and assigned a number to that fact because it was three of them there. You had the kickoff return. You had the block. You had the block PAT that was returned for a 2-point conversion. So you had all aspects of the special teams, some way, some shape, some form, that turned the momentum in this game two, three times. But we do not know who that special teams coordinator is on each of these teams, but we know somebody's doing it, and they did their job. Both of them did their job good, but at the same time, their special teams made some critical mistakes.
Yeah, great point, great analysis, and I really appreciate you taking us into this. I'm gonna take it a little bit off in a different direction. You all talked about it on the field, maybe some cultural, psychological framework. One of the things that I love about HBCUs when we think about it is the collective group that we talk about. I talk about it in my research, the HBCU sports culture, and it's the collective. But one of the concerns I have with folks that don't necessarily do the research side of this is the fact that each of these HBCUs are individualistic in nature. And then there's a basic way that you can break HBCUs down that allows you to understand that they are not monolithic in terms of the framework, which kind of goes to what BJ Jones talked about, time and space, and what does it mean? So you need to understand that when you start looking at HBCUs. So one framework will not necessarily fit all HBCUs. So we need to keep that careful. And I think as a group of people, we often have this framework that we believe that negative connotations or traits reflect on all of us. And we have to find a way to escape from that. It is a natural occurrence because of what we went through historically in this country and to some degree around the world. And so sometimes we buy into this as if we have to have this superficial framework in a way that allows us to go beyond things that are out of our control from a perspective that is negatively put on us. So I want us to really understand that you can't take that in. That is mentally exhausting in a way that does not work. The last component I will tie into this before we move in and really get into some framing of the game which I'm sure much people want to hear, but is the business perspective of this. And BJ Jones touched on this a little bit when we understand it. As a consultant, when I'm coming in and working with presidents, athletic directors, either in terms of designing curriculum or whether it is looking at strategies for the athletic program, or even when it's about hiring individuals, coaches for several different sports, or athletic directors sometimes has been the case, or even working with a conference office. One of the things I look at in the bid uniquely is to talk about first, what is the culture of that institution, or what is the culture of that conference? And sometimes we will just put things together and say, hey, this should fit here because it maps out regionally on a map, or this is because it's a HBCU. We must take the deeper dive and understand that when you're talking about a coaching hire specifically, if we look at it, where is that program at a given space and time? What fits and works at Jackson State may not fit and work at Southern, particularly at a given point in time. And then you have outside components that fit on that. For example, Southern Alabama State, FAMU, Texas Southern University are operated by their own board of regents. That creates a different framework when you're talking about Jackson State, Alcorn, Mississippi Valley, that are governed by a state board. A Prairie View that's under the Texas A&M system. What you're able to do and allowed to do from the board of regents that are working, and this doesn't even include Tuskegee, Morehouse, or Bethune-Cookman that are private institutions that have the uniqueness about them. So you can't just slap lipstick on a pig and think that you can do all these things the same way. So it is extremely important to understand that if you're going to decide to break these things down, that you need to understand really what it looks like from a business perspective. Well, that's enough of that. That's the business talk. Let's get into the fun part. Let's break down this game again in a way, and we'll move forward. Let's look at it in terms of the first half, if you would, and then the second half. And you can decide if you want to go maybe a little more into a quarter analysis. In terms of the first half, obviously, it was 14-10 after the first quarter. You went into the halftime, it was 26 points by Pine Bluff as they were leading the way. So BJ Jones, break down in terms of what you saw in the first half, either from a coaching perspective or some big plays that really caught your eye analyzing this game.
So jumping out in the first quarter, Arkansas Pine Bluff came out aggressive, both on the offensive side and defensive side of the football. And they were dominating up front. We saw Alabama A&M go down to get the field goal, and Arkansas Pine Bluff come back and they put 6 on the board. You also saw that kick return by Tyron Ralph on that kickoff. And when it touched his hands, you knew it was a touchdown. Kickoff coverage team was way out of position. This was a couple of things I noticed that Arkansas Pine Bluff did in the first half, particularly. They did a lot of what we call two-man. We're going to go, the corners are going to go press man coverage. We'll go 2 safeties over the top. They both have a half the field. And that defensive line was able to get a lot of pressure on the kill glass. They would occasionally send a linebacker and kind of mix it up there. And then for Alabama A&M, that kind of threw them off a little bit. You can tell that two of the big plays in that first half, where you kind of felt like Arkansas Pine Bluff was going to pull away. First one, Alabama A&M was about to get pinned deep. They go for the fake punt. Arkansas Pine Bluff was completely out of position. That was something that they saw on the film, that Arkansas Pine Bluff would cheat to one side. You saw the fake punt. Alabama A&M converts, keeps that drive going. Another one was the block punt, missed block punt. We had 3 guys that ran into the kicker. That extended an Arkansas Pine Bluff drive. Third thing, not on special teams, Arkansas Pine Bluff had the chance to extend their lead. Tyron Ralph comes around on the reverse. He fumbles inside of the 10-yard line. Instead of Arkansas Pine Bluff extending that lead by a minimum of 3, potentially by 7, it's a turnover, and then we go to the half, and they're only up a score. So I think that those were the key plays in that first half.
Great points there when you look at that. Let me go to you, Vaughn. What did you think about the first half? Anything stood out to you either from a coaching perspective that you want to take a deeper dive into, or some plays that you thought were key in terms of Pine Bluff going in with the lead in terms of 26-18 at the half?
Well, I thought BJ and AD both did a great job of really explaining that first half, the ebb and flows of what was going on. Glad BJ mentioned the fake punt, because playing at FAMU, I was a tight end and a punter, and so give the punter, the weird guy, some credit. He took off like nobody's business and ran for his life, and that was a big play. That was definitely one of the things that turned. And talking about that roughing the kicker penalty, if you look at that and talking about good coaching and discipline, I know Doc had to be grimacing, because that play, there were three guys that really violated the rules of special teams, which AD told us last week. I didn't hear him, but everybody agrees. He said that special teams was going to be a big part in this championship game. Not only were special teams a big part, penalties were a critical part of this game. Alabama A&M has 6 penalties for 55 yards. That's manageable. Pine Bluff shot themselves in the foot. 13 penalties for 139 yards, especially the timeliness of those penalties. And I readjusted the penalties for myself for exactly what AD said and BJ said. There were 3 guys that roughed the kicker. So as opposed to 13 penalties, I gave them 15 and I added 30 more yards on, because they could have easily given them 45 yards, because all 3 of them were absolutely wrong and they knew they were wrong.
No doubt about it. Oh, man. Yeah, that looked ugly. With that, AD Drew, what are some things that stood out to you in terms of this first half when you start to break it down in some way for you?
We talked about special teams. I said special teams was going to be the key in this game, because both these teams came in with high-powered offenses. Defenses were, I won't say suspect, but defenses were statistically pretty much even, giving up in the mid-20s in points. But those defenses could give up those kind of points because the offenses were so good and could make up for the defensive mistakes. On paper, Pine Bluff should have had the advantage on special teams. Now, we got to go back and run the tape and see who actually had the advantage in special teams in this particular play. And I saw, haven't had a chance to watch the full game. I have watched enough of the highlights to see this. I think it was, I don't know if it was second quarter or third quarter, there was a personal foul face mask followed by a late hit, i.e. live ball foul, dead ball foul. For those of y'all who like to do the math, that's a 2 for 30 sale. So, that's when we talk about penalties. That was another key penalty that a lot of people overlooked, which led to points.
Yeah, and that was a big thing in terms of how crucial these penalties were, as Vaughn and yourself were pointing out, is they led to points. And BJ Jones will tell you, playing this game, it's challenging to win a game when you're costing your team points on the board that are allowing the team, especially when you have the momentum and are frustrating a team in some different ways. You allow them to get some of that momentum back. With that, let's take a quick break and we'll come back on the other side, close out on some of this, and then start looking at things moving forward. This is Dr. Ville inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. They're on assignment, and so we have none other than BJ Jones, AD Drew, and Vaughn Wilson sitting in and giving you some great insight in terms of the spring 2021 season as it was analyzing the 2021 football SWAC championship game. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere after this quick break.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
They play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAG, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay, tune into the HBCU Sports.
Win, diamond ring win, jet flying, limousine driving, kid stealing, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these gators down. Whether you like it or not, you best love to love it. It's the best thing going today. Woo! Woo! Nature boy, let's go, baby.
Man, it looks like Coach Maynard was having a lot of fun signing a 4-year extension, getting him a championship ring. He's living in his best life right now. Some people, man, do not know how to have fun. I don't think people understand how much work these coaches put in to coaching these players, time away from their family. And we also forget this is a college game. And so this is not the professional rank. And it's amazing to me how many of us want to dictate the framework of every little piece of this in components of that, instead of sometimes just sit back and enjoy some of this. Life is too short to allow everything to just bug you in a way that you can't enjoy life. It's amazing to me. But that's a little probably too much for me, so I'll get on that. Rusty Russ had this question before we jump in here and get into the second half, as promised. She talked about how does the SWAC find a way to attract and retain better referees, because she's putting on top of this. I will answer that part of it, but the second part I want you all to look at in terms where there are some critical components of the game that you thought the referees may have got some plays wrong. And I'll allow either one of y'all to pick that part out. One of the things I know about the refereeing system is people understand that America is about capitalism. The world is about capitalism. The way that you tend to be able to get through and navigate this space is the amount that you're able to pay. The more that you're able to pay, the better referees you're going to get. So the SWAC, along with other FCS programs and even Division II programs, oftentimes, not just HBCUs, but across the board, you just don't watch those other FCS and Division II games, so you don't catch them. They are the training ground past high school in regards to referees as they climb up the ladder and they get quote unquote bigger assignments, which means they're getting more money for those assignments and they climb up. So it's a training ground. So the same thing, you all, the ones that have this framework about coaches going up the ladder, it's the same thing in any professional sphere, including referees. You start at some base level. The more games you get, the better that you're graded, the more time that you can put into it, you tend to be able to rise up the ladder. The other issue that we can't escape in this problem is the fact that there is racism in this country. So it plays a way in everything we do, including referees. So those African Americans, blacks, whichever term you prefer to use, or other minorities for that point, And even gender representation do not necessarily get the opportunity. That's a point of fact. And you all can discuss how true you want that to be. If you're somebody like Representative Tim Scott, that's a whole different issue. We won't get into it, but how people miss some of this stuff. With that being said, is you have to understand that you're only going to have limitations in terms of what that looks like. So with that being said, not that we won't escape it, but we can still be, from a critical lens, look at it from that perspective. BJ Jones, was there like one particular or two things that you saw refereeing that they got wrong? And since we're going to play this game, was there a couple of things that you saw that were critical that they got right?
One of the biggest things is on that last drive where Arkansas Pine Bluff's quarterback threw for the first down. The clock didn't stop for the chain reset. That was I saw, Doc Gamble having an absolute conniption on the sideline about that. That was a small thing. Overall, I didn't think yesterday's game was a bad or poorly officiated game. This is the thing about officiating. Officiating across the board is bad, even at the NFL level. How many NFL games have you watched where you were like, oh my God, what are they doing? Officiating across the board is bad. And we're at a point in this country where we're not getting a lot of young officials to come in. Even at the high school level, they are bumping up pay and they're giving all incentives at the high school and lower levels to get younger guys to get into officiating, and it's just not working. So officiating is bad across the board. And if you think SWAC officials are bad, I challenge you to watch the rest of college football, because I think the SWAC is actually doing a lot better than some of the officiating that you see on Saturdays and other conferences.
Can I get some of this officials talk?
Yeah, please do.
All right. For those who may not know my background, I've officiated for 20 years. That's from YMCA, rec league, high school, and collegiate in selected sports. So I come with a unique framework, probably different than anybody else on this panel. And number one, for those referees on Saturday, Doc mentioned the pay. Everybody thinks that this is their full-time job. This is not a full-time job. Although there are some officials out there who are good at what they do and do multiple conferences, multiple sports, you can make a good living being strictly an official. But the number of people who choose to go that route are few and far between until you get to even the NFL does not have full-time officials. Yes, NBA does, MLB does, but both sports, collegiate, definitely non-collegiate, but professionals do not have full-time officials. BJ, you want to know why kids aren't getting into it? Have you sat in the stands and listened to how people talk about us? You cheating. You don't like us. I don't care who out there. Team in white, team in blue. I called the foul because I saw the foul. I don't care who it was. I threw the penalty because he grabbed him and pulled him back here and said, come back here. Where you going? That's why I called the hold. I don't care what your quarterback just did and ran for. The worst thing when you're refereeing football is when you see that flag out the corner of your eye, but you still got to chase this play 80 yards knowing it's come back because your partner back there threw a hole. And the only thing that I would say when we got back there, I was like, I hope it was a good one for all that running I just did, knowing we getting ready to come back here. So, parents, fans, whatever, pass a background check. I get your application to join the association that I joined, or I'll put you in contact with whoever you need to join whatever association, because it is not an easy task. And then one last thing, and I'm gonna pass this on. A lot of these guys who are doing the college games on Saturday, they also do high school. Some of them even do middle school. Some of them may do semi-pro ball. You know what that means? A hold is a hold, no matter what level. But there are little rule differences between every level that, and on the fly, after you evaluate this play, you have to make a judgment. Is that a penalty, or is that a foul at this level? How do we apply this rule? So, and so every now and then when you pull out that one rule that only you know, or maybe you and your partner know, page 500 in the rule book that nobody in the stands knows, oh, just get prepared. Just get prepared to hear it.
Hey, and nobody comes back when you get your graded and they show you that you were like 95% great doing your calls. It's that that 2% everybody remembers. They like that 1 or 2 calls. They don't talk about the rest of the day.
No, nobody sees it. And then I got to get this out. When the coaches get it, let you have it on the basketball court, sideline, whatever. Coach, if I'm wrong, send me the film. I will gladly send you an apology. Still, I think I've gotten film one time.
Nice.
On a call. Had a coach. I was doing baseball, argued me up and down. There was a cameraman who actually took a photo of the play at the plate. Coach just knew I had it wrong. Photo came, boom, tag, got on the ankle that much before before that foot got to the plate. Banged him out, but I had to throw him out too.
I don't want to belabor the point because this could be actually a show to itself. And we might do that.
Y'all.
But with that, Vaughn, let's jump into the second half. What in terms did you see were some of the key changes that Alabama A&M was able to do in terms of that second half that really turned the tide and allowed Alabama A&M, the Bulldogs, and B.J. Jones' mom to really celebrate the fact that they were bringing back.
Well, like I said, even the analysts on ESPN were saying that Pine Bluff had done something that nobody dared quite do against A&M because of their threat of passing and the great receivers. But like I said, I got to keep mentioning his name because I know these guys work hard. Marcus Lawrence, the offensive line coach at A&M, got his guys together and discussed a strategy to handle those blitzes, those constant blitzes that were coming. And I mean, they were coming from everywhere. Pine Bluff was sending Monroe Beard, number 44, and Isaac Peppers, number 53. They were having a field day, a literal field day on glass, and they routed him up pretty good. I actually saw the toughness in glass because they were putting some hits on him, even when he was trying to escape. But the biggest change that I saw was that offensive line started buying time. And let me tell you, before I go to the second half, I got to say that 30-yard over the shoulder so that only his receiver could catch it, that throw by glass, that touchdown pass was major. That was a major league throw. And I don't know if people can actually realize how good that throw was because the defensive back did not have a chance. And it was going to be a tough catch for the receiver, but you trust your guys out there that they're going to bring that ball in. And then in the second half, Glass just started throwing the guys open in some senses. He would see where the defender was, and he would throw it on the opposite side. Receivers, when they go back and look at the film, they love that because that throw helped them not to catch that big hit. So I started seeing things like that and concentrating on what I was seeing. I was like, man, this guy Glass is he's what he's billed to be. But coming out in that third quarter, still dodging Peppers. There was one series where A&M got sacked 3 plays in a row. They lost 5 yards on each play. That Peppers had 2 of those sacks. I was like, you all are going the wrong way. You try to go this way, but they went 15 yards, 5 yards on each play in the whole series. So Pine Bluff did not let up, but that's what I say. This game has so many ebbs and flows and people stepping up. And it was poetic justice to come down to the literal last second coming off the clock.
Oh man, great breakdown. I really was entertained about a lot of that. I want to give a shout out to Mario Thomas. We were watching the game, and now you can watch games with your colleagues and friends, whether you're doing it on Zoom and watching the game or just texting in a group message chat. And he was talking about the fact that coming in the second half, that Alabama A&M should run the ball. So my comment was, can they run the ball? And I want to go BJ Jones in terms of why would you need to run the ball in the second half based on what Mario Thomas, I believe I understand and know and agree with him. But what are some point of the facts of why they were able to run the ball ultimately did and how it changed the complexion of the game in terms of what Pine Bluff was doing on the defensive side, as Vaughn said, early on was doing the blitz, which was obviously frustrating Akil Glass in terms of what he got done. So BJ Jones, take any part of that you want in terms of second half and take a deep dive and go in there and let the followers know your thoughts in terms of what took place that second.
As a guy that played linebacker at the collegiate level, one of the things that you hate to do is think a lot while you're on the field. Running the ball and then coming off a play action forces linebackers to now think a lot. And Alabama A&M used that to their advantage. You saw how the offensive line was struggling in the first half. One of the reasons that stopped is because Alabama A&M incorporated the run. Now those linebackers just can't tee off. Now we're going to fake the run and go play action, a little bit motion here. We're going to slow you up. We're going to throw right behind you because they're now getting sucked up. So that does that. And now linebackers are guessing. Is this a run? Is this a pass? And by the time they figured out, Gary Qualls is 3 yards. He's right on that same level as them. So now you're having to play that guessing game. You're not able to react as quick as you were in the first half, and they were more one-dimensional. Read and react. And sometimes that reading can take a little bit of time that you don't have. You get a little bit impatient. And that's what you saw in the second half. You saw Alabama A&M go to that play action a lot more. The reason that play action was the reason that it was effective is because they ran the football. If you don't have the run, your play action is just motion. No one's believing that. And then you also saw it on the read option. Akil Glass fakes to Gary Qualls. Everybody and their mom knifes down on Gary Qualls. Akil Glass pulls it around. He goes outside. He gains the first down. So, doing that, making guys read a little bit more, slowing down. You can't be as aggressive. You can't just be in attack mode. You have to read what's going on. Alabama A&M did a great job with that yesterday. And that's why running the ball is so important.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great breakdown. Let's go to you, A.D. Drew. Talking about Akil Glass. Let's go in a little bit of that. We talk about what he's able to do offensively with picking defenses apart, his touch on the ball. But obviously he has a little toughness and grit about him. He took the ball down a couple of times and made some runs that were critical in terms of this game, in terms of getting key first downs, getting the momentum and getting everybody focused. Coach Maynard, even after the game, before that clip we seen when he's doing his touch, he got the question on that, was a little concerned in terms of one of the hits he took, but he was talking about just the toughness and how he led this team ultimately to this championship. What are your thoughts in terms of Akil Glass and what you saw him able to do to kind of pick himself back up after maybe what would be for some people a subpar first half, but really pushing his team to a championship in that second half?
Actually, I had flashbacks of John Elway in that, I think it was the second Super Bowl for Denver when he got helicoptered, when Akil Glass got on that run up the middle and got somersaulted. That was for somebody who they say is not a scrambler and fleet of foot. He got those 15 yards, took that hit, got up and down, and with the flair, no pun intended, of his coach, flipped the ball, and I did what I was supposed to do. I got the first down for my team, but we want to see Glass get to the NFL. Coach Maine, I know you just won a championship, but we need to improve the offensive line if he's going to get through next year and still be a potential good draft pick, because he takes too many shots right now, and he's their quarterback. He's not going to scramble around like a Skylar Perry. He's a pocket passer, so got to improve that pocket for next year so that we can see him get to the league. Now, before I finish off on Glass, y'all mentioned the catch by Moore. What was the better catch though? The catch by Ballard in midfield when he got his helmet knocked off, or the one in the end zone for Moore? Both of them are like 1A and 1B as far as great catches by quarterbacks, and both quarterbacks, Skylar Perry and Glass, put the ball where they needed to set their receivers up for those catches. Too bad Ballard took a shot on that one, but he was able to hold on. I've got a nickname for Glass.
As they doing the lecture, y'all let me know which of the two catches, as AD you just mentioned, which one of the two do you think was better? Go ahead, AD.
But I've got a nickname for Queer Glass. Everybody wants to call him Glass Man, Glass Fool, whatever. No, y'all need to call that man Real Estate. I'm gonna tell you why. Because when he's on the gridiron, he owns all of that out there. He owns the whole plot of land out there with his throws. And what's the one thing they say about real estate? Location, location, location. What did Vaughn say? He throws his players open. He makes the right throw. He throws the ball where he needs to for his players to protect his players. It's all about the location of where he puts that ball at. So call that man Real Estate from now on.
He a Real Estate Glass. We'll see if it's right here first in terms of what it looks at. So as we kind of close out on this part of the segment in terms of the game, I'm gonna go to everybody and let me get your final thoughts on the matchup and anything that you want to share. I'm gonna start with you, BJ Jones. What was your biggest outtake of this game?
Oh man, the biggest thing is that, man, Arkansas Pine Bluff wasn't as aggressive in the second half. Alabama A&M's defense basically shut that off Arkansas Pine Bluff offense down in the second half. You saw the amount of points that they scored in the second half. And Skylar Perry didn't look Skylar Perry-ish. One thing about a quarterback, if you're going to scramble, commit to it. You saw Skylar Perry do a lot of, okay, I'm going to scramble. Okay, I'm going to scramble. And by that time, they gave the defenders too much time to it, to see that and adjust to him. So he wasn't able to get those big runs. And if you're Arkansas Pine Bluff, that coulda, woulda, shoulda. Could have gone up by more points in the first half. That touchdown that he missed on that last drive when he was going to Ballard, if that ball is thrown on the money, that's a touchdown. And we're going to overtime. It coulda, woulda, shoulda, right there. So I think for Arkansas Pine Bluff in this football game, that's what you're going to be thinking. And if you're Alabama A&M, what's next? How do you make the improvements to be able to run it back in the fall? Because Alcorn will be back in the fall. FAMU will be joining the division. Bethune-Cookman will be joining the division. Hopefully, we're looking better from a COVID standpoint, so we don't have the opt-outs. So what's next for Alabama A&M? And Akil Glass. I tell people number 4 is special. You saw some of the passes that he was able to make on yesterday. He is special. Enjoy this young man because I think that he has he's going to make a living on Sundays at the next level. And I think he might be able to do it for a long time.
No doubt about it. Great points that you make there. And we'll get in and tease out in our last segment to look at that fall 2021 with some of the teams that you talked about and why they should be a focus point. So with that, AD Drew, what are your big takeaways from this championship game 2021, the special edition that we took place this spring?
A season where I was one of the people who actually said these were the two teams that I saw getting to the championship game. But most people didn't see these two teams getting to the championship game. I'm gonna hold off on the fall 2021, just like you said. But the one thing I want to talk about is that post-game press conference, that clip that we played earlier. I checked some of the message boards on Facebook. Some people were offended by Coach Maynard's actions and demeanor during that press conference. Go back and watch, not the press conference, post-game interview. Go back and actually watch the whole thing, because what people put out there was just him doing the Ric Flair. Back it up about a minute when Tiffany Green asked him to do that Ric Flair impression. He didn't just do that spontaneously trying to show up somebody or whatever. No, this is something that she picked up and knows that he did. Hey, let's have some fun. That's what we do anyway. We talk trash up in the bleachers, in the parking lot, at the tailgate. Coach Maynard just happened to do it. He just happened to have a camera in front of him. And then Jay Walker came back at him with another version of Ric Flair. So go back and play that. Listen to that whole about 3 minutes before y'all go and jump on Coach Maynard and saying he possibly said HBCU football back 20 years. No, you may think that, but he just advanced Alabama A&M Bulldog football for the next 5 years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Points well taken. With that, Vaughn, what was your framing in terms of this game this past Saturday?
I stay where I started with the coaching, but now I'm going to add depth of the student athletes to my conversation, because one of the most important critical decisions of the game was Doc Gamble gambling with his backup quarterback on a drive right down about to go in. Because everybody knows when a backup quarterback comes in 99.9 times, he's going to hand the ball off. And for Doc Gamble to have that confidence in Taylor Holston to come in and throw that strike, and I mean, it was a strike to get that last score for Alabama A&M. The coaching fortitude to do that, and knowing your players and having a guy that can come in cold, completely cold, and to throw a strike in a championship game, that shows the level of HBCU football that I don't think people appreciate.
Great closing part as we take this last break. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. They're out on assignment, and you're getting an in-depth analysis with BJ Jones, AD Drew, and Vaughn Wilson. Do not change. We'll be right back after this quick break, and then we'll take a look at fall 2021 and see what everybody should be excited about. Our real early take on fall 2021 when we come back. Do not change that dial. We'll be right back. Dr. Bill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition.
You gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAG, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay. Just tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. B.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, but only this is the Sunday weekend edition. So those two guys are out on assignment. So we have none other than BJ Jones bringing it to us, AD Drew, as well as Vaughn Wilson. So we're going to give you this final take as we take a quick look, I should say, in terms of fall 2021. Let me ask the last question first. AD Drew, who will play in this SWAC championship game in the fall of 2021? Then we'll come back and see why you said that. But who's going to be in this matchup? Remember, Alcorn moves over to the West. So take that into consideration. Who's going to have be in the SWAC championship game fall 2021? Yeah, I'm gonna bring you out early, way too early. You can always change it. A lot of things.
With everything being as it is, though, that's almost like that car you see. You driving down the street, you see that car coming at you. You just wasn't ready for that car to come across that median right there. That's what you just hit me with, Doc. I don't want to sound like a homer and take FAMU. So I'm not gonna take FAMU, but I don't think A&M will repeat because it's from being the chaser to the one chased. My early sleeper is going to be, and this is hard for me to say as a graduate of Tuskegee, also in addition to being a graduate of FAMU, is Alabama State on the east side. On the west side, right now my early clubhouse favorite is going to be your school, your alma mater, Doc, and Prairie View. That's the early clubhouse leader. Now, catch me in late July.
A little bit. Alabama State and Prairie View. Go ahead. Yes. Who's going to host this? You talk about why. Who's going to host?
Hey, we did such a good job at Jackson. Why not just let it stay in Jackson?
That's the way to squirt out of that one. Let me go to you, Vaughn. Who do you see in this fall 2021 SWAC championship game?
Well, I haven't been in the SWAC long enough, just some months, and trying to, they're already trying to put social media is already trying to put the Rattlers out the SWAC because we really talk trash too. I look online sometimes and cringe because, that's what we do at HBCUs, talk junk, but I don't know if anybody talks more junk than the Rattlers. Higginbotham just went down to Bethune, and you can't count Terry Sims out. I've seen Terry Sims lose the first 3 games of the season and boom, finish up. I mean, just really killing at the end of the season. And adding Higginbotham, go from one side of the conference and one team to the extreme opposite, the farthest east and south team there is. We know what Higginbotham can do. So, but Willie Simmons is so excited about getting back to the SWAC. The game when we were still open in 2019, when FAMU played its only SWAC opponent, Southern, the game actually drew more than homecoming. That's unheard of at black colleges for a game to draw more than homecoming. But FAMU versus Southern, marching 100 versus the Sonic Boom. Human Juke. Oh Lord! See, I got it right now. I got to write down the Human Jukebox. Get all the nicknames.
You might
right.
need to go apologize.
I do apologize.
Oh yeah. Hey, that is Vaughn Wilson. Send everything.
and before we leave, remind me to tell y'all a story about me and a Jackson State drum major some years ago before I leave. We got to tell this because this is the personification of what HBCUs are and what we do. But I think the Alcorn State Braves are going to have a tough time beating Pine Bluff. Scalapari's back and that team, and I just thought they were well coached. And also going to BJ's point, I don't think the game was refereed that bad. So I just wanted to throw that in because I didn't get a chance to referee that bad. I didn't see the game being taken over by officials. Some calls are.
You put that in there.
Yeah, some calls are objective, and that's just a part of the game. Every coach I've known has said you can't let that affect you. You just got to keep playing because there's nothing you can do about it. So, so I will say Pine Bluff, and I'm gonna go with Shotgun Willie Simmons. I think the Rattlers are ready to come in the SWAC. They've been prepared. I saw the spring game and was pleasantly surprised. I thought I was going to see a rusty team, but those guys are competing. Can't wait to get back at it. They actually were allowed to play some controlled scrimmages against some other teams during the spring. And watching that was, obviously I can't even comment at all because part of the media is that it can't be part of the NCAA rules. There can be no media presence there. So I was there as just a fan, so I can't report on it, and I want to respect that. But I did see them competing in it, and it didn't look like a team that had been off for 2 years. They looked like a team that is ready and excited to come into the SWAC.
No doubt about it. So you got FAMU out of the East. Who do you got in the West? Was that Pine Bluff?
Pine Bluff. They're in the West, right?
BJ Jones, they forgot about your Southern Jaguars with the coach coming in. So
I like it.
That's a little different. Southern used to being out from the front, so things are changing. But that's what's going to make this fall 2021 exciting. I think there are a lot of legitimate reasons why people can look at several different teams. And thus, we hadn't even had anybody talk about Alabama A&M that just won this spring 2021. So let's see what BJ Jones has going for us and see his thoughts in terms of this way too early analysis of the fall 2021 season.
In the East, I like Florida A&M. I think that Florida A&M, in my opinion, if you had to ask me right now, I think they're the odds-on favorite to win the conference. You look at everything that they have coming back, and you look at where they left off in 2019. FAMU had an argument that they were the best HBCU football team in the country in 2019. They have a legitimate argument for that. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff. They beat the Western Division champion from the Southwestern Athletic Conference. No one else had that resume. And they're bringing a lot of those guys back. And they change out at quarterback, but Holcomb, transfer from Kansas State, as good as advertised. And I'm hearing a lot of buzz about him. In the West, the Wild West. I think it's going to come down to 3 teams in the West. I think it's going to come down to Southern, Arkansas Pine Bluff, and I think that third team is going to be the Braves of Alcorn. And if I had to pick one right now, I would have to go with Alcorn because no one has proven that they can beat Alcorn State in this format over the last couple of years, since 2014. And if still is done, I'm going to go with the Braves. So I see a FAMU Alcorn State SWAC championship game.
Nice. Let me go back to you.
Be mad.
In 2019, it was BCSN that named FAMU national champions in 2019. So that's a great point that you bring, and I'm glad you shared it, BJ Jones. Let me sneak back to you, Vaughn, in regards to who is hosting the game. 80 Drew snuck out of here and saying it's going back to Jackson, but and they're still going to keep the format with the team that has the best regular season record will host the game. So Vaughn, between FAMU and Pine Bluff, where do you see the championship game being hosted?
In the Sunshine State.
Oh, keep it simple.
It's coming to Bragg, newly renovated Bragg Stadium. They're renovating it now, getting it ready for the season because we know the championship game is coming.
Yeah, still talking that noise. Let me go back to you, BJ Jones, and you said FAMU out of the East. You said until somebody does it, you're going to stick with Alcorn State. Now they'll be coming out of the West. Where is that championship game going to be held? Are you going to hold on to the Braves in terms of what they've been able to do to continue to host the championship game since they changed the format? Or do you think it's veering down there to Tallahassee, as Vaughn said, is they're renovating the stadium to make sure that they can host the championship game?
I think as things change and remain the same, I think it'll be go back to back down on the reservation. I think Alcorn to be hosting, and I think that would be a ruckus house, to say the least.
No doubt about it. I know you're going to talk about the championship game on Spring 21 on your show tonight, I'm sure. So, yeah, you can sneak in there if you want to and tease them out in terms of this segment if you so desire, if you get a chance to do that. Not telling you how to run the show, but I certainly plan to listen, so it'll be fun and entertaining since you jumping out there. You're going to keep Brave fans on your ship right now, so that's going to be
Hey, BJ, you mentioned Holcomb. I went and stood next to him on the field. I'm 6'3", 280 plus. I thought this guy was a linebacker. I kept looking for, where's this new quarterback? And I didn't realize he was 2 people over from me. I thought I was by a linebacker. The dude is
he's huge. Yeah, he's big.
That arm is all that is cracked up to be. And he was calling plays from the sideline. He's learned the playbook. So just that insider information, he is ingratiated into the FAMU team. So he will be one of the guys competing to lead that high-powered offense.
Oh, man, it's going to be interesting and fun. So let's do this since we got a little time as we starting to close things up. Let me go back to you, AD Drew. Who are your top 3 or 4 teams in the East Division? So you went out Alabama State. Break down those top 3 or 4 teams in terms of the order, and you can start at the bottom from 4, 3, 2, 1 or 3, 2, 1. Who do you have in the East like that?
And it's so tough. And I'm gonna say this while I'm buying time trying to formulate my thought right there to that question. But there is one fan base that talks more trash than us Rattlers.
Oh, is it?
Have you been an Aggie lately? Have you been an Aggie?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Aggie's good.
Yeah, they got to know.
Nah, get it back to that.
We'll see what happens if the tide changes. Will they be able to continue to talk north? To me, one of the good traits conference members, HBCU teams that are at the top of my list of can talk trash, or when they talking trash when they not getting it done. That's when it gets interesting. So, AD Drew, as you bought a little time, go ahead and give me your top 4 out of the way.
And actually, that was a great analogy because I was going to say, is this a shifting of the tide in the SWAC in general? Because you've got perennial East powerhouse Alcorn shifting to the West. You've got a champion, Alabama A&M, first time they've been champions since 2006, if I got my years correct, going off the top of my head. You've got the last fall season's BCSN national champion coming into the East. You've got the team that the national champion hasn't beat in 10 years coming into the East with them in Bethune. You've got an Alabama State with probably, maybe arguably the 3rd best quarterback in the conference right now, behind the 2 that were in this championship game. Or at least potentially could be the 3rd best quarterback in the conference. And everybody sleeps on Valley. Valley is the one that is everybody's homecoming date. But Valley really didn't get a chance to get going this year because of COVID and everything else. I don't expect Valley to be that doormat that they have been. So looking at the East, if I go with Alabama State as my number 1, it's going to be an A&M. I didn't say which one. It's going to be somebody with the initials A&M after finishing 2 and 3.
All right. So you got both of your 2 and 3.
Yeah.
On the list, what do you got in your top 3?
Like I say, I went with the other A&M in the West because Prairie View is a quarterback away from being great, and I think it's going to come. Only reason I didn't go with Southern is this late coaching change. Although they stayed in-house, there was some rumblings out there that the other assistant coach should have gotten the job. So let's kind of see how that plays out. There was just some things amongst the alum. You got Alcorn. Who knows what Alcorn is going to look like coming off of this COVID layoff? So, and Grambling, there was a reason why Grambling didn't have anybody on the SWAC first or second team. I don't expect those same reasons to be there next year. And the team that's been pretty much the doormat of the West Side was just in the championship game. So this is going to be fun next year. So does that leave the people who employ you as the new doorbacks of the West, Dr. Cavill, Texas Southern?
Yeah, they got some work.
Who knows? I don't expect Texas Southern to be that team.
Break down in terms of Texas Southern where they at. Let me go quickly to Vaughn. Your top 3 in the East, quickly, and your top 3 in your West.
In the East, I got Florida A&M, Alabama A&M, and Alabama State. In the West, I got Pine Bluff, Prairie View, and then Alcorn.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go to BJ Jones. Charles Bishop would be dropping his head, looking all up because you didn't say anything about his Jackson State Tigers. He'd be trying to jump in here. Then Mike Washington would be jumping up, truly excited about AD Drew talking about Prairie View. But with that take, they're out on assignment, so that's their fault. BJ Jones, top 3 on the East, top 3 on the West. Final statement.
Florida A&M, number 1. We just talked about them, everything they have back, talented, both on the offensive side and the defensive side of the football. Number 2, Alabama A&M with Kill Glass and company. They get their defense shore up, they become real dangerous. 3, Bethune-Cookman. People saying Alabama State, and you say Alabama State, and I don't know where you're getting it from. Bethune-Cookman is definitely going to be number 3. Alabama State's going to do what Alabama State does. Over in the West, I would have to go with Alcorn, defending champs, Felix Harper. Those guys, we know what they are on the defensive side of the football. Number 2, out of respect, I'm going to go with the champs of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Southern University Jaguars to talk about the spring, you talk about preseason, you talk about the all-SWAC team. Let me help you understand something. This spring, you saw Southern's number 2 and number 3 quarterback. You never saw the starter. You saw 12 starters out by the time you came around to that Bayou Classic. Those children that replaced those starters are all SWAC performers. Those starters are back in the fall. Good luck. You ain't got to respect us now. Come the fall, you go respect us.
No doubt about it. Well, you broke that down so sweet. Let me go and get 4, 5, and 6 out of the way.
4, 5, and 6 right after Southern. I'm going to have to go with Prairie View. I think what they do on the defensive side of football, Story Jackson and that group, their quarterback away from being very, very dangerous. With Prairie View. In the fifth spot in the West, I got to go with Grambling. Just so much that they have to replace, and there's not enough time to revamp an entire roster over the next 2 or 3 weeks to get ready to play ball in the fall. And in the bottom spot, Texas Southern, they hadn't won the conference game since 2018. Enough said.
Wow. East 4, 5, and 6.
In the East, I got to go with. I got to go with Alabama State. I think that they are right there. I think they're a very young football team. People forget that Alabama State football team very young. Most of those guys are underclassmen. In the 5 spot, I got to go with Jackson State. I honestly don't know what Jackson State is going to have because half the team is transferred out. So we really don't know. But I do know they're going to be better than number 6, which is Valley.
Got it. Point blank. That's why we call him the HBCU football guru. He brought it right here on this show. Thank you all, gentlemen, for taking out your time this Sunday morning, giving us the breakdown of the SWAC championship game, spring 21 version, and then giving you a little sneak peek in terms of the fall 2021. Check out BJ Jones' show tonight. Always check out Brian and AD Drew on the Sports Wrap in terms of what they get done. And you can get Vaughn, as we'll have him integrated a little more, bringing us some insight in terms of Florida. You can also check him out on HBCU Game Day and his other frameworks of what he gets done. You'll see him much more involved in this. He's a talented brother. With that said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the HBCU Lab in the College of HBCU Sports with the lab lecture listeners checking us out, with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, with the HBCU football analyst, BJ Jones, AD Drew, O'Brien, and AD Sports Wrap, and Vaughn Wilson, as I said. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Mill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock. This is our final edition of the summer breakdown. Catch us up in the spring edition breakdown. Catch us in the summer, and we'll bring it back. So that's why we extended it just a little longer so you can get your sweet taste in terms of what we're doing. Hope you liked it. We plan to give it to you more this fall. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. If there's any breaking news, special things, we might bring the collective crew back. But other than that, just check with us and keep us on your watch list. Again, dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Course, lecture dismissed.
YT Productions.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU.